here.
Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It's our last one of the year, and I guess it's our festive edition, as it's almost Christmas. Happy Christmas to you, wherever you may be watching this today. My name is Sim Dendy, part of the team from Spring Harvest that's bringing this live webinar to you today. And we've had a great year of interviewing various church leaders and asking different questions. Today I am in Rustington, near Littlehampton in West Sussex, and I am with Becca Jupp, who is the senior leader of Arun Church. So welcome, Becca.
Thank you.
And Becca, I wonder if you could tell us a bit about, just to get things started, because we want to talk today about multi-generational church. And I'd love, especially any questions you've got, if you've got questions you'd like to just write them down, put them on the bottom of the Facebook live video. We'd love to hear from you. But Becca, tell us a bit about your story, maybe how the church began, because it's a fascinating journey, believe it or not. You've been part of the church pretty much all your life. So tell us some of your earliest memories, I guess.
Well, I guess the church started about 45 years ago. And I was 2 then, so very little. But my grandparents went to Littlehampton Baptist Church, and my parents went there, and they decided to do a church plant into Rustington. So there were about 30 people that went to like a little village hall in Rustington, and they just started very, very small. And then it grew bigger and bigger, so we went to the bigger hall, and then we went to Littlehampton where they had a bigger hall there, and so we just kept growing as time went on. My dad took over the leadership after my grandpa.
So your granddad
So my grandpa started it, and then my dad took over after him, and then 7 years ago I took over from my dad. So we now meet at the school, which is a brand new build, so it's really fantastic for us. But we meet there, and there's about 400 people there now, so that's brilliant. But we also, like, church for me is definitely not, just the service and just on a Sunday. It's like every day, 24/7. So we've got a community centre as well, just down the road, which you know all about because you had a lot to do with seeing that built, and that's like the most amazing story how that was built. So that was 12 years ago. So we work out of that community centre, and we meet in Littlehampton School, and so.
So, what sort of church plans have you got for Christmas this year? We're talking about December. What sort of things have you been doing as a church or as individual, encouraging people to do? What's the kind of Christmas activity of Arun Church?
Wow. Well, we love Christmas. Isn't Christmas great?
Yes.
we enjoy it, don't we? Well, we've done loads of really great things this Christmas. We started the season with King's Chamber Orchestra.
Yeah.
They're brilliant, aren't
Amazing,
they? Absolutely brilliant. So they came and played. There was about 150 people there, and they did a children's concert, which was absolutely beautiful. And then this year we've done a children's musical, which was Bethlehem the Musical, and we've got about 50, 60 children. And what we wanted to do was really encourage them, and we wanted them to have that whole experience of putting on a show together and enjoying being together. And so they put on this amazing show last Saturday, which was really, really brilliant. So there were about like 500 people turned up to see them, which we were thrilled about. And then we've got our Christmas special this Sunday coming up, and then we do Christmas hampers to our community, so that's all part of it. And just we have a lights on at the Wigbourne Centre, where we have about it's just mad and crazy, and like loads and loads of people coming through the doors, and just people from our community, and we give them all an advent calendar and invite them all to the services. We have nativities because we've got 2 play centres. And so we've had like 3 nativities with all the families from the communities. So it's been fantastic, so far.
Yes, as you mentioned there, I used to live around here and be part of Arun Church, and so I remember got some great memories of this place and Wickbourne. I can't believe they still do the lights on. That was
we still do the lights
a weird idea we had.
Yeah. And it is absolutely crammed with people, and
fantastic.
It's brilliant.
And all we're doing is turning on the fairy lights.
Yeah, that's right. They're a bit more than fairy lights now. Like they're proper lights. Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. So Becca, we're talking today about multi-generational church, and particularly how do you lead a multi-generational church? We talked a lot on this series here of live interviews about the importance of leadership, how leadership can grow healthy churches if it's done well. And especially if we're going to talk about all the different age groups. Now, it'd be great to hear a little bit about Arun and its journey through all ages, and even fascinating, you mentioned there about your granddad, and your dad, and now yourself. And how do we really engage not just the children, but every demographic in our church?
Yes, yeah. Okay, so, when I started as a little girl, we decided to not have Sunday school when we started church, when they planted the church. And so I grew up in a church that would have been, the children weren't taken out, they were very much part of what was going on. And instead of going out, there was a special bit for the children. So they had a children's talk, and they would often have a children's song. So my uncle's Ishmael, and he was very, very key in that time. And so we grew up with that kind of DNA and that ethos. I think
part of the Glory Company.
I was part of the Glory Company. Yeah, I was one of the Glories.
You're one of the Glories
when I was a little girl, and then went on to Spring Harvest. I've been at Spring Harvest for years and years. Absolutely loved it, especially, I loved it because I used to go when I was a teenager and just be on the Glory Company, and that was absolutely fantastic, but learned so much during that time, learned a lot about church leadership during that time, so that was really incredible. Our journey has started there. At the minute, I would say that we've got about 400 people in the church now, and we've got a real great mix there's a real diverse mix of ages and backgrounds, and a bit of culture, not totally here, but so it's brilliant that and our ethos is that we want to support each other and be together. We're stronger when old and young stand together and can partner with each other and serve and help each other. So so that's kind of where that belief and ethos came from at the beginning.
So that's the kind of the background of the ethos and values of our own church, and obviously you were brought up in that, which is there's a whole other conversation around succession and carrying the same DNA, I suppose, as that which you're stepping leadership on. How as you as a leader, growing up in the church, taking on the senior role 7 years ago, what was that moment where you either knew you were called to leadership, or you felt like it was a leadership moment for you? You really felt, this is something I really feel like I could do. Yeah. What was it like for you, that moment?
When I was 7 years old, I knew that God had called me to. I can't say that it was to be a leader. Probably a preacher was my understanding at that time, and I can remember saying that to my dad. And at the time, my dad and my grandparents, they would have not been for women in leadership, so maybe he turned a little white when I said, I think God's called me to be a leader when I was 7, so I started there, and I knew that God had asked me to do something, and of course there's been a bit of a journey in that, and I'm sure that there's a journey for everybody, whether you're male or female, in leadership, because there's some things that you have to work through, and some things that you're not certain of, and some things that you get frustrated in and you have to push through in. So that's been my journey. But God said, I felt God say to me when I was 40, I would walk into what He had asked me to do, and that is exactly what happened, which was against many odds in many ways, but amazing.
When do you feel God say to you? Because I remember you saying to me before you were 40, you said this a few times.
Yeah.
So when was that moment you felt like, when I'm 40, which is a significant age for many people, but
I just had a sense.
Right.
I just had a sense that that was the time that I was going to walk into what I was born for.
Yeah.
And that is what happened. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about multi-generational church, and you've stepped into leadership 7 years ago, and you've inherited this DNA. It's come with you as growing up through the church. You know, your dad's still around and part of the team and helping out, doing many things. What's the first thing you're looking at across this large church? I mean, Arun's a great church, got some great heritage. Some of the things we can talk about of cutting edge and all that kind of stuff, and Delirious. But what is the bit you think? I want to get my teeth into this part of church. What kind of drew you to kind of engage with the different generations?
I think that what brings me alive the most, absolutely, is seeing people run further than me. That brings me alive. When I watch somebody speak and I think that's what you're born for, it brings me alive. Yeah. When I see somebody lead young people, when I see somebody lead a prayer meeting and watch them come alive, it just makes me think that makes me buzz so much. So when it's releasing people, which is the essence of church leadership, isn't it? That you, and that's young people, that's old people, that's that is across the board. I love seeing people find Jesus for the first time. That is a very, very key thing for me, and I want whatever we do in church to make sure that we are open, we are including everybody that may walk through those doors. And so I mean, I often think what I want people to know is I just want people to know the love of God. And isn't it, when I think about our community that we live here, and I think so many people just don't know that. They don't know that unconditional love. And that's really what I feel I'm put on the earth to do, to release, to help people find that, you know, because it's made such a difference for me. So.
And how does that work across all ages? So often we'll talk about investing in the 20-somethings, the millennials, or investing in children. We all talk about how to run a great children's program, but how do you make sure that we're valuing all parts of our church community, that those who are retired, those who are, in their middle ages, those who are, their kids have left home and not sure what the next season looks like. How do you make sure that you're not just talking about the future generations, but you're always talking about those who've already helped create what you've got today?
I mean, it's such a balance, isn't it? I'm so grateful for the older people in our church, because they get behind me and they will champion the younger and champion other people, which is so incredible. They're so older people. I mean, it's so, you don't want to be stereotypical, do you? I just want everybody to be released in the church, to be doing what they're called to be doing, whoever they are, whatever their age. But there's some things that have happened in church that have been amazing. One of those things would have been, in the past we would have partnered older people with younger people. Now they don't necessarily know that. We'll just say, would somebody like to pray for our young people? Here are their names. You don't need to know anything about them, but just pray for them. And the older people have prayed for those younger people, and we have seen such a difference made there. We've got an older lady called Avril, and Avril is the most amazing. She's a single lady who has been a missionary, and she has got the most amazing stories. And the young people, so we had a meal here with Avril the other day as a family. So I've got 4 children and their other halves as well. So we got together and just said, Avril, tell us your story. And the story that she brought just was so inspirational. The whole evening was just an amazing time of just hearing what she'd been through, and we all asked questions, and then she went to our youth group, and they loved her, absolutely loved her, because she's just real and authentic and not trying to prove something. And she prophesies over all of our young people. And so we are so fortunate. We're really very fortunate in the church to have people that are, and they were, sometimes it is a sacrifice, and it's a sacrifice both ways. I know church isn't a meeting, and I never think it is, but there are some times when it's a bit loud for some older people. I mean, I don't want to categorise them, because there's lots of older people that love it. So
wonderful. And I love the idea of the mixing up of age groups and having an older person come to your youth group. I think that's a lovely idea, and I'm sure maybe vice versa that could also work. I guess one of my questions is around how do you do that consistently? How do you make sure we don't have these kind of little blip moments where we do that? We have a moment where we go, oh yeah, we've nailed it, we've done that little talk, and so therefore we've done. How do you make sure it's a value that Arun holds for many years to come? How do you make sure you're putting into place these values that they're really owned by the church? They're not just a little event that we...
So they're like embedded in the system.
That's a good word, yes.
Well, that's a challenge, because the more people that come into church, the more you have to start again, because so I guess that we just talk about the values of church a lot. We try and demonstrate them in every way that we can. So on Sundays, the children are in some of the time. Some of the time they are out and having their own separate program, because we've had to do that because there's so many people now. So, but we still would talk with all the generations and include everyone that we can. We're not perfect.
No, so the children still stay in the whole meeting?
No, they would go out twice a month, and then twice a month they're in, but once one of those times they would go out for football or or dance or craft after their talk. So for the adult talk, they'll go out for that.
That might be worth explaining to those watching and listening here about the way you structure your meeting, because the idea for many people of the children staying for the whole time is something that's been very unique to Arun. I don't know of any other church that does it the way that Arun does it. And I know you've had to adjust, you're saying, in recent times, but it's still an important value, the whole family.
Yes, it is.
Talk through maybe how you structure your meetings.
Well, I think that the meetings would be, worship is really important to us. We just love to worship. I love the Holy Spirit, to be honest. I love, so when we get together, we'll worship for a good 45 minutes, and then we would have, we'll have a talk for the children. The talk for the children is absolutely brilliant, because if you've got visitors there or people that have never been to church before, it's brilliant, because we'll tell the story that we're just about to do an adult talk on, and you can't assume everyone knows that story. And so lots of people say, I get more from the children's talk than I do from the adult talk. So we'll have that. This is the times that we're all in together, and then we will have an adult talk. Sometimes we have a family service, which is more that's more all age, but the family service will be more thinking about what our children need, and that will be slightly different as well. We have a family service once a month, so we do that as well.
It sounds quite chaotic. Is it chaotic? Is it quite calm? Does everyone sort of know the system?
It's lively.
It's lively.
I wouldn't say it was chaotic, but I mean it can be. If sometimes children are lively, but you get used to it. The children, I wouldn't notice if I was preaching and the children were noisy necessarily, but I think you might if you came for the first time.
Yes.
So
which is probably. I guess if you're a visitor, you might be both blessed by that and go, what's happening here? Given, I suppose, your history of church attending. As I was guessing, what have been the challenges of some of those values you're holding really close about the importance of family in all ages and generations? Have you hit any sort of, challenges along the way that have pushed back onto some of those things?
I think that there's challenges as in the younger generation will receive information very differently to the older generation. So say your newsletter or your ways of communicating have to become so much more diverse. And I'm not very good at technology, but like the younger generation wouldn't even really engage in Facebook that much. It's more like Instagram and other things I don't know about. Do you know about those things?
I've heard of it.
You've heard of it?
Stop it. Make yourself a couple of old
people.
Instagram.
But that would be that sometimes one of the challenges. The way that so songs are very different now, and the way new songs coming in would be very different in the way that the format of them, and sometimes that's a challenge. But I have people that are just brilliant at just saying we're right with you. We're going to go with what's happening. So there's different things like that. I guess I'm sure there's more, aren't there?
I think that's a really valid point. How do you communicate across all the different age groups? So assuming that a newsletter will answer everything, or a Facebook post, or we have to think about multiple forms of communication. Hopefully saying the same message but in different ways. That's really, I think that's really useful.
Yeah, because some of our people don't have a computer, and we've definitely gone. We're relying on that for communication a lot, and we have got people that haven't even they haven't got a computer, so they can't be watching this today.
Sorry about that. I'm going to apologise too. They won't be listening. We'll print out a copy or something. And I guess I love the fact that Arun has for many years been a church that's inspired. It's inspired me when I was part of that church there, and even now leading our church in Rumsey, we often look to Arun and see what you're doing, what you're up to. I guess what's your kind of vision on how you're seeing the future of church in the UK, or what are you seeing amongst Arun, or are you excited about, or is there more to push into with this of age groups, especially we talk about the third age, is now becoming, there's how do we help people who are newly retired feel valued and part of things with something to offer and energy? What are you seeing sort of future-wise, Becca? What's your kind of finger on the pulse moment?
Oh, there's so many things, aren't there? But if I could I want to pass on to the next generation everything that I can possibly pass on to them, but the main thing would be that they know the fire of God in their lives, that they know that they that they just are caught up with God, and it doesn't become a script that church doesn't become a script, and church doesn't become just a highly organised great thing, but it is alive with God, and that the church is just alive like that would be the thing that I would want to pass on the most. Unity is so important, isn't it? Bringing people together and denominations together and working together. And
that idea of unity with, like we just talked about, various forms of communication with various age groups. I mean, I know you've seen a real sort of spurt of activity amongst your millennials, your 20-somethings. Those are baptisms at the beginning of the autumn term. Tell us a bit about that, because that's like a whole other wave of another generation.
Well, that's been incredible. So we've had, I think since September, 16 young people baptised, which just is amazing. They've set up a youth band, and the youth band's been practising now for a while, and last week they got together and 80 young people came along and our youth led the worship, and it's just so emotional to watch, because they were just going for it. And one of the guys, he said, this young guy, 15-year-old, he said, okay, everybody, I don't know if you know God or if you don't, but let's all raise our hands.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would never have the guts to say that in church, everybody do this.
Yeah.
And he said, everybody raise their hands. He said, you go for it as sole survivor. Why didn't you go for it now? And and they all did.
Yeah.
They all raised their hands. Even the people that don't know God were going for it. And it just was so inspiring, and it was just so brilliant to see that. So that is exciting to see that happening.
Now, last couple of things, Becca, because I appreciate people watching this will come from all sorts of types of churches, and will be tuning in saying, I'd love to find out more about how we engage either older people or younger people. I mean, the assumption is that Arun would be classified probably as a new church or a charismatic church, but you said it's 45 years old, and you just said to me earlier the average age is over 50?
Well, I would think that there are lots of people over 50 in our congregation.
Lots, yeah. So it's a real spread of ages.
Yes, yeah.
So if someone's watching today with a church of either they've got a particular demographic or they've got age, can you give any sort of advice of how to engage other generations to get involved? How would you think about somebody who maybe is struggling to find the families working with the older people, or working people who are so busy trying to find time to work with teenagers? Is there any advice you might give to those listening?
I think the main thing is that we all live preferring somebody else.
That's great.
That's my... So if we all live preferring somebody else, as I get older, I guess that there'll be things that I would prefer, but I hope that I will live preferring other people all the time. So I think that when we live sacrificially, when you encourage that in your culture, what you see, the thing is that we do need our young people to survive and to live. We need our older people as well, but we need them to carry on, and so it is really important that we invest in the younger generation, all of the older generation. I'm not just talking about leaders. Us as an older generation invest in the younger generation. I'm a mum of 4. And my dream is that my children go far further than me. I will do anything to see that happen. I will listen to their music if that's what it takes, and I will do anything to see them run with the fire of God in them. And so it is exactly the same with church. There is just a longing to see that happen. So
that's a great statement. So that your desire is to see that other people, so people preferring others, to live to see others be preferred. I think that's a great. I want to take notes rather than just trying to interview here. But we're going to bring things to an end. But I know that when you started, you took on the responsibility of leading Arun Church, and you were part of the leadership team for many years before that, but took on the senior leadership from your dad. You wrote a letter to the church all about the different generations, and we've sort of dug it out of the archive. I still think, I think it's a brilliant letter, and I just think if it's okay with those listening, I'd love you just to hear this as we bring this to a finish. I'd love you to hear this letter that Becca wrote to the church. So, last word with you, Becca.
Okay, thank you so much, Sim. Okay, I wrote this. Dear church, thank you firstly to you children for all you bring in our time together. Thank you because I imagine sometimes you may get bored or fidgety. Sometimes you may think, I'd rather have a good run around and play instead of having to listen for a bit. Thank you for the life you bring to us, the creativity, fun and freedom you bring. I love your dancing and your laughter and the way you remind us we're all children of God. Thank you, parents, for every time you struggle to church on a Sunday, and then after trying to encourage and take good care of your children, you feel like you haven't heard a thing that's gone on and leave wondering why you ever bothered. The truth is, parenting is both an amazing privilege and the hardest thing in the world, and you are doing such a great job. Every sacrifice you've made with your children is a seed that in time will grow. You're creating godly habits in your children that will last a lifetime, even if you can't see that now. Thank you for the perseverance and sacrifice. Thank you for all of you who are single, by choice or not, or through bereavement or divorce. I can imagine there are times walking through the doors to church or other events is difficult for yourself and takes a lot of bravery. I'm sorry for any time you've felt ignored, overlooked or alone. You're highly valued here, and my heart is that as your church family, we learn more about how to really express that value more. Thank you for your courage. Thank you, teenagers, for being who you are. Maybe sometimes feeling judged, misunderstood, as there's always more going on under the surface than you may portray. Maybe the music feels a bit quiet and slow to you, not like Soul Survivor at all. Maybe we're not quite up there with Twitter and technology as I know you are, but I want you to know we need you. Thank you for your passion, your love of justice, your dislike of hypocrisy, your open-mindedness. We want to support you through those vast transitions of life, child to teenager, teenager to adult. I pray church will be a place you can run to with your struggles and your questions. Thank you to you who are older in years. You are so important. I know it's sometimes too loud for some of you and too quiet for others, and the songs sometimes tricky to sing. You may have heard the talk many times before and wonder why the newsletter is changing yet again and why everything is now online and feels less personal. Thank you for your support, love and prayers anyway. Thank you for sometimes biting your tongue. Thank you and honour you for the sacrifices you have made and for releasing the future generations, even when that costs you. Thank you for your wisdom, your encouragement. We need you. You are the home guard, fathers and mothers of a generation, highly valued and honoured. Thank you everyone for the money you give. I know you could have so easily chosen to ease the pressure a bit on your family finances, go on holiday, get a new carpet because yours is threadbare, bought a new car, spent it on a new pair of boots. Thank you for your often unseen sacrifice. May God give you double for your trouble. Thank you to the activists who wish we would just get on with it, and thank you for your patience. Thank you to the contemplators who wish we would just slow and quieten down. Thank you for your patience. We need you both. Thank you to the small group leaders who give their lives to serving even after a long tiring day. When you feel discouraged, only 2 people turned up. Thank you to the children and youth workers who give their lives to serving people even after a long and tiring day and feel overwhelmed when masses of hungry, loud young people turn up. I'm sorry for any time you have been overlooked or felt undervalued or that you don't belong. Thank you, if you're new here, for taking the step to walk through these doors. Thank you to the setup teams, sound teams, AV teams, refreshment teams and musicians for continually getting up early and serving us. Sorry when we don't say sorry. Sorry when we don't say thank you and show our appreciation. I love this church. I love everyone being together. It's the body of Christ. We're the hands and feet of Jesus. Let's take care of that body, feed it, love it, watch it grow and thrive. We will never be a perfect church. There's always something we can grow in. Thank you for being a church that loves the Word of God, loves worship, loves the people around, pushes through in adversity, loves this community, sacrifices its time, money and energy, loves Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and loves God with all our heart, mind and strength.
Wonderful. Becca, thank you so much. That's an amazing letter to finish up our time together. Thank you for letting us come to your home, your beautiful home, and wish you all a very Merry Christmas, those who are listening and watching. And you can join us in the new year. We'll have another webinar for you to enjoy in January. But for now, have a great end of 2017 and we'll see you next year.